Okay, I've got something for you today, and it's from Pete Walker's book. It's written about forgiveness, and I think it's very important to have this information for people that have been through trauma in childhood, on any level, and in adulthood as well, because we can get so sidetracked by so many different beliefs, and the idea that one has to forgive purely in order to be healed is not the absolute truth. So I'm just going to show you a few slides, and then you can maybe have a look at your own life and see how this fits in with your own life, and see if it helps you to evolve some of the pain that you're in around understanding what forgiveness is and how it works. Okay, so here goes. We've got the first slide, and the book I'll show you where it's from towards the end of this video. So it's basically an article also that's on his webpage, and I'll put the link in the video below for that as well. So forgiveness begins with the self. This is what Pete Walker says, and it's from an article, Recovering the Adventure of Life Beyond Addiction, but also in his book. So he says, there has been a lot of shaming and dangerous and inaccurate guidance put out about forgiveness in the last few years, in both the recovery community and in transpersonal circles. Many survivors of dysfunctional families have been injured by the simplistic black and white advice that decrees that they must embrace a position of being totally and permanently forgiving in order to recover. Unfortunately, those who have taken the advice to forgive abuses that have not been fully grieved, abuses that are still occurring, and or abuses so heinous they should and could not never be forgiven, often find themselves getting nowhere in their recovery process. In fact, the possibility of attaining real feelings of forgiveness is usually lost when there is a premature cognitive decision to forgive. This is because premature forgiving intentions mimic the defenses of denial and repression. They keep unprocessed feelings of anger and hurt about childhood. Unfairness is out of awareness. So that's what I'm thinking about before I go on to the next slide, that, you know, we cannot be in denial. If we deny that we've been hurt, or, you know, even if we hurt ourselves physically, you know, we can't deny that. We have to attend to the wound, the physical wound. If we break a leg, we can't just deny it's happened. And with the psyche and the mind in childhood, if it's been so, you know, hurt and some of it so heinous for some people, that if we don't dig into the pain of that and grieve it, then we're going to give ourselves more problems. And a lot of people, you know, and myself included over the years, you know, disassociation, the use of alcohol, codependency in relationships, and other things that take place as a result of that, because, you know, we think the forgiveness is the cure, but, you know, if we're disassociating and we do this forced forgiveness that society puts on us, then it can actually be more damaging to us, and it plays out in other ways in areas of our lives that we deny. Okay, next slide. So real forgiveness is quite distinct from premature forgiveness. It is almost always a byproduct of effectively grieving, and no amount of thought, intention, or belief can bring it into being without a dissension into the failing realms. Conversely, cognitive and philosophical structures unreceptive to the possibility of forgiveness sometimes block the access to forging feelings, even when such feelings are present. It might be that the most healthy cognitive position concerning forgiveness is an attitude that allows the possibility of its occurrence on the other side of extensive grieving. The attitude will work best if it includes the condition that feelings of forgiveness will not be forced or falsely invoked to cover up any unresolved feelings of hurt and anger. In this vein, it is also especially important to note that certain types of abuses are so extreme and damaging to the victim that forgiveness may simply not be an option. Examples of this include sociopathy, conscious cruelty, and many forms of scapegoating and parental incest. So this is what I've taken into account too, that, you know, that not everything in life is forgivable. And, we can think that it is because we've been told that through religious upbringing or friends who've not been through abuse or spiritual belief systems. There are many ways that we can be forced into it or feel that there's something wrong with us because we cannot forgive. And there are some things that are unforgivable, and that's okay. And we can accept that, in my view. And again, it's something that we have to figure out for ourselves. So the next slide. So when forgiveness has substance, it is felt palpably in the heart, and it is usually an expansion of the emotion of compassion. Compassion is certainly not always the same thing as forgiveness, but it is usually the experience within which forgiveness is born. Often this happens via an intermediate process where, having grieved our childhood losses substantially, we occasionally find ourselves considering the extenuating circumstances that contributed to, possibly, he's saying, our parents raising us in a neglectful and or abusive ways. Most commonly, these extenuating circumstances revolve around two issues. First, our parents often parent us in a way that blindly replicated the way that they were parented. And second, they were often supported in their dysfunctional parenting by the social norms and values of their times. So those are the two things that can be taken into account: the social norms and the fact that maybe the people that abused us went through abuse. But again, it's not, a let off hook of, because again, sometimes it's so heinous that it's just not gonna get that place in us that's okay. And, again, it's time as well. So the next slide. So when considering this, we may sometimes get that our parents were also quite victimized, and we may consequently find ourselves occasionally feeling sorrow for them. When and if this experience of feeling sorrow for them becomes profound enough for us to comprehend how similarly awful and unfair their childhoods were, it can sometimes expand into an experience of feeling forgiveness. However, unless this feeling of forgiveness for our parents is grounded in compassion for our own individual selves, one that has been won via effective grieving for our own losses, the above process will be nothing but an empty mental exercise. So something that, I will add here, that with forgiveness, when we no longer feel in pain and feel riled and triggered by how badly we've been treated, then in my view, I wouldn't even call it the word forgiveness. When we come to, some understanding within ourselves that may take us many, many years, if ever, and that's okay too. We can't force ourselves into anything. But, we can get to a place of being neutral about a flashback or a memory or a situation, which means that really, we go beyond even the word forgiveness, this word that society throws onto people that have been through abuse. And then we come to a place in ourselves where we feel, oh, that doesn't matter so much anymore. So I'll give you an example. It could be a friend that you've lent $500 or £500, and you could be really peed off with them for like a number of months or years, and depending on your circumstances or the agreement. And then one day, maybe years after or weeks after or whatever it is, because it's all going to be circumstance dependent, you might just say, well, forget about it. And then you don't feel so riled about it anymore. And I think we've all had that experience, maybe with money or something, that we've lent somebody something. But as a child, when we've been through so much trauma that the soul has been shattered and it's affected us on a psychological, in a psychological way, or a physical and our spiritual, our soul, when our soul has been so traumatized and we're in so much pain, forgiveness is not an easy one. It can be really tricky. These are just thoughts for you before I go into the next slide. So he says here, Pete Walker says, as real forgiveness is primarily a feeling, one which right intention can sometimes gestate, it is, like all other feelings, ephemeral, never complete, never permanent. It is governed by the same dynamic law of emoting that shows human feeling experience to be frequently changing, unchoosable and unpredictable process of the psyche. no emotional state can be induced to persist as a permanent experience. As sad as this may be, as much as we would like to deny it, as much of a cause of ongoing life frustration for each one of us, it is. And as much as we were raised and continue to be reinforced for trying to control and pick our emotions, they are still by definition of the human condition, largely outside the province of our choice or wills. So that would be an example that you get triggered by something. You see something on the news, you see children being abused, or you see a case that's similar to yours, or a friend tells you that their child has been sexually abused, as an example, and then it recalls your own sexual abuse as an example, and then you get riled again and angry, and you feel some unforgiveness, like a cycle of just memory. So it's not all or nothing, but we don't have to be written in stone. We don't have to, decide that I'm going to forgive and it's written in stone. And, we're feeling human beings. We're allowed to feel. So it could be that some days you might feel like, yeah, I can forgive. And then other days you might feel, what the hell? It's like, how dare they have done that to me? And this is normal, healthy behavior, in my opinion. Again, think for yourself on this one, where you're at. So the next slide. So forgiveness, he says, forgiveness then at best, like love, remains a human feeling experience that can only temporarily be ours. When, move this out the way. Oh, sorry, missed my slide. Oh no. Okay, I'm going back there. I'm not going to start this video again. I was trying to move something there because I couldn't see. But anyway, let's go on. The show must go on. So forgiveness then, at least, like love, remains a human feeling experience that can only temporarily be ours. When grieving has been thorough enough to be reintegrated as a normal and easily accessible process of the psyche, love and forgiveness can also become our consciously chosen values. This can happen in the later stages of recovery, when we begin to notice and experience that functional processing and grieving of interpersonal hurts can often lead us quite naturally back into loving feelings. Thus, when I am hurt by intimates, I may not be able to immediately invoke loving or forgiving feelings towards them, but I know that with sufficient communications and non-abusive venting, I will be able to return to an appreciative experience of them. So that this is the truth. Like when we fall out of favor with a friend, or they fall out of favor with us, we can have thoughts that are not so great, and then eventually we come back round, and then eventually it doesn't hurt so much anymore. So as much, he says, as I can forgive myself, that much can I forgive others. What I really forgive in others is an old pain of mine, released from the disgust of self-hate and loved and welcomed like a bird with a broken wing. Shame and self-hate did not start with me, but with all my heart, I deign that they will stop with me. I will do unto myself as I would have done others undone unto me, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to go to the next slide, and I won't skip again like that. So this is the book, okay, that you want to get. It's on Amazon, or you can get it from other providers as well. And just do a Google search and you'll come up with that book. And then this is a picture to remind us that we came here to bloom. So whatever hardship we've been through, it's possible bit by bit to evolve. And we can do this in various ways and various tools, and through therapy, through talking to friends, through having decent friendships. There are so many ways through to healing. But first, we're going to have to use our voice and speak up. And part of the book of Pete Walker, which I'll go back to, is, he talks about grieving, healthy angering, getting rid of the inner critic. And there's so much other stuff in this book that it's not a book that you read as a one-off. It's almost like you just open that book and you just begin the healing journey. So that's it. And remember, we're here to bloom. That's that. And then this is a beautiful picture I found. We might be lost, but we've still got that light with us, and we will find our way out of stormy waters, and we will heal bit by bit. And last but least, here's my current, what I'm up to. you can stop this and have a look. But I do hour meetings with people. I have got a disclaimer here that I'm not a medical practitioner, so I don't diagnose any medical issues or anything, but I do help people with my wisdom and my knowledge. And I give, general advice, astrology advice and chart reading. And I, talk about complex PTSD, my own journey through, and give you tips and allow, get some verbal ventilation going. And then I can also show you Faster EFT tapping sessions, and I can record those meetings as well. But what I decided was because of the social distancing with what's gone on in the world right now, I'm normally $70 an hour, but I'm down to 20 whilst this is going on, and I'm carrying that out till the end of June. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'll be back with more tomorrow or the day after. That's my plan. Thank you for watching.